What's up, it's the Electrical Code Coach here. This is the Electricians in Action. Let's get to it. Today I want to talk about the price to install a ceiling fan. So we're going to be talking about what do you charge in order to install just one ceiling fan. Now, it's going to change if you have multiple ceiling fans or if you have, other work going on. But what do you charge? What's the base price to hang a ceiling fan? Let's talk about it now. So the first thing I'm going to do if I get the ceiling fan call is I'm going to ask questions. And I'll be honest with you guys, the first thing I do on every single call is ask question after question after question after question. So for a ceiling fan, some of the questions I may ask: what year was the home built? That will let me know if the power's in the junction box or if the power's in the switch. So if the home was built in 1950s, the power bundle's probably going to be up in that light. That means I might have to get in there and cut out the soldered splices. It's just going to add more time to the install. If it was built, let's say, 1992, likely the power is going to be down there in the switch box. So I'm just going to have a switch leg up there. So my job's going to be a little bit easier. Also, dating it is going to let me know whether or not they used a metal box. Now, all ceiling fans are required to be hung on ceiling fan rated boxes now, but typically, in my personal opinion, if there is a strong, well installed metal box there and it's one of the older metal boxes, typically I'll hang a ceiling fan on it and try to put some extra supports in, support screws in it. But if I get to a house and it's a plastic box or a chintzy metal box or whatever, you'll have to install a ceiling fan box. So I'm asking the age of, and we're going to talk about that and how it may affect your price here in just a second, but I'm asking question after question after question. The next question I'm going to ask, and this is the most important one, is how high are the ceilings? How high are your ceilings? And the reason is because that's going to make a difference on what ladder I have to bring, how long I have to take. Do I have to bring somebody extra to help me or whatever? So it's just one of those things that you want to ask question after question until you're satisfied in order to give them a price. I'm going to ask them what year is the home built. I'm going to ask them how high are the ceilings. I'm also going to ask them, when did they buy the fan? Did they buy the fan 5 years ago and it's been sitting in the closet, or did they buy the fan last weekend? Where did you buy the fan from? What brand is the fan? Is it a very large fan? Is it a large room fan? Extra large room fan? And all of these things are going to make difference in the time that it costs, me to install. Or the time that it takes me to install. So let's go ahead and talk about prices now. So everybody's going to be different. Every area is going to charge differently. But let's say I call someone, it's an 8-foot ceiling. They just bought the ceiling fan. And there's a good chance, there's already a ceiling fan there, so there's a good chance that it is a ceiling fan rated box. That's another pre-qualifying question that you can ask them: is there already a ceiling fan there? And that will typically let you know whether or not there's going to be a ceiling fan box. But let's say somebody calls me, there is a ceiling fan box in the ceiling. I'm going to charge them between $140 and $225 to install one ceiling fan. Now, depending on how far away it is from my shop, the location I have to drive are going to make a difference in that price. But the main reason is because you've got to cover yourself. Now, you may say that's a little bit high or maybe that's a little bit low for your area, but I've never had anyone be disappointed after I left, and I'll explain what I mean. Sometimes you'll have somebody say, man, $160 to hang a ceiling fan, and they'll take that deep breath over the phone. You can hear it in their voice, and I'll say, listen, by the time we get there and do the install, I've never had anybody disappointed in how much I charged them when I left, and I never have. I've told them 160, I've told them 180, I've told them 225 based on the different scenarios. I've told them much higher. You get into vaulted ceilings, you might have a $450 fan install. So it just depends on, what the situation is. But I've never had one person ever, after I left, hanging a ceiling fan, feel like I charged them too much. Everybody always stroked the check or swiped the card or whatever it was, had no trouble paying me, because how long it takes. You got, your commute there. Then it takes you got to get in a meet and greet, find out where the fan is. You got to take the old fan down. You got to sit down and put the new fan together. That can take 10 to 45 minutes, right? Depending on the complexity of the fan. Then you've got to get in there. A lot of times we got to cut in and redo the splices, up in the box. Sometimes you got to bond the box. By the time I get done, I've never had anybody be dissatisfied, what I charge. So if you're a standard fan, you feel like there's a ceiling fan box, charge in between 140 and 225, based on your area. Higher if your area's, base service call is even higher. But that allows me to go in. It typically takes me about an hour. It really doesn't matter what fan it is anymore, but it used to take me longer. So when you're first starting, it's going to take you a little bit longer. But I can go in there in about an hour. By the time you pay your help and everything, you might make $100, and you got to get back in the truck and go do it again because Uncle Sam's got his hand out, right? No, I'm just kidding. I'm a happy taxpayer. You got to feed the goose that lays the golden eggs. But with that being said, that's one thing I wanted to talk to you about. So just to recap, ask questions, okay? over and over to the point where they're almost exhausted with your questions. Every question you gather is going to be, another piece to the puzzle. Now let's talk about another thing that you need to do before you even get started. And this is on the pre-qualifying questions, is you need to let them know that, okay, it'll be $160 to change your ceiling fan today, but if I get in there and there's not a ceiling fan box, and then I have to put a ceiling fan rated box, and it might cost you $225 if we have to change the box out, or I'll stop and give you a flat rate quote if you don't have a ceiling fan box. And that's another thing that you really need to cover yourself on a ceiling fan, is letting them know that, hey, there may not be a ceiling fan box there. I can't legally hang it. Even if there's a ceiling fan there now, there may not be a ceiling fan box, and it may cost you X amount to change that out, or I'll give you a flat rate quote once we get there. So, and I've taught you previously in the past, different ceiling fan boxes and how to install them. But with that being said, there's just some things that you got to protect yourself. It's one of those things where, it's not super cut and dry. If you're hanging a lightweight fixture, it doesn't matter what box is up in the ceiling. You can hang it. But when you're hanging a ceiling fan, there's a few extra steps and a few more pre-qualifying questions before you can give them a price. You can typically give them a price over the phone. If you get there and something's funky, just don't start until you talk about it. Say, hey, it didn't seem like this over the phone. This is how much it's going to be. Whatever. I would rather shoot a little high and give somebody, a little bit off than I would be to ever have to come back and ask them for more money. And I typically almost never do that. If you guys are starting out, just getting going, I almost never come back and ask for more money unless there's truly something that's not my fault or that is already broken and must be fixed, and I'm negotiating that up front. So let's say I do find something, hey, this is super dangerous, you're going to want to have me fix it. I'm negotiating that cost and that fix up front. We're not here to sell work, ma'am, and I'm not. I mean, we're drowning in work, and I'm very thankful. But with that being said, we're not here to sell you anything, but this is dangerous. And you can typically show people, most people, if you've built that rapport with them, they're not going to question you, looking at something, hey, this has got, browning on it, or this is burning, it'll cost this much to fix it. But don't ever just fix something, and then, unless you're just not going to charge them. Sometimes I go in and I fix things that, I don't charge them for, and don't even tell them about, just little things, or cut a splice out, or do something. I'm not going to mention every little thing, especially if I'm not going to charge for them. But don't fix anything that you're planning on charging them for unless you pre-negotiated it up front. I'm a huge advocate for upfront pricing. So, and the reason is that I want you to know how much you're being charged. That way, all I have to focus on is executing the work. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you and the customer hadn't pre-negotiated, or it's just one little extra piece and they're like, oh, just bill me for it. And then you get to sit down and you give them the bill. They're like, oh. And it was just $125 extra on a $4,000 job. And they're like, oh, that was $125. And it's like, no, I would just rather tell them, you can almost tell them $135 and then feel better that you pre-negotiated it after you execute it. So these are just some things that you're going to want to watch out for when you're out doing. Hopefully you guys can glean a little bit from our talks on pricing and stuff. So I love pricing jobs. I love working with customers, and I love grinding. You guys know that. So let's go ahead and get to it today. I hope you guys have a happy Thursday, and we'll catch up with you guys tomorrow. Let's get to it.